guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Devi and you are watching Just Devi Marie. So today I'm going to be sharing with you another testimony, and this is going to be the testimony of my university journey through faith. So if you guys want to hear this testimony, please stay tuned. Subscribe as usual, and also remember to like this video if you have been enjoying it. Also, don't forget to check out the previous videos on my channel and my other channel called Yardments. If you guys are watching today's video, I want you to leave in the comments the praise hands, you know, those hands that like saying hallelujah, thank you Jesus. Leave those in the comments to let me know that you're rocking with me for the entire video. So if you guys have checked out my previous testimony on me quitting my job with nowhere to go, and if you guys haven't, I will leave that video in the cards and in the description below so you guys can check that out. I did kind of mention that, you know, my whole university journey was another testimony. Like, I don't really know how I made it through that time in my life, but I did, and it was only through faith, only through God. So I wanted to share that with some of you guys. I really hope as usual that this really encourages you. This is in no way to boast about my life or anything, but it is really just to give God all the glory and all the praise, because trust me, it's Him alone will make it through university. I want to start off by saying to you guys that I did graduate from university a few years ago, you know, and even the application to university, it was just an interesting one. In grade 12 is when they actually start telling you to apply for, you know, thinking about where you want to apply for in terms of like tertiary education, if that's something that you wanted to go ahead and do. And you know, they always tell you, you need to make sure that you have different options and so on. So, you know, don't just apply for one school or don't just apply for one program. Honestly, I was just like, well, I know that I'm going to apply to Carmack and I'm going to do journalism, and that's the only thing I'm putting in. So from there, so like I was just like so adamant and determined that I was going to communication and media school, media and communication school at the University of the West Indies, Mona. So that's the only thing I applied for. I didn't apply to any other school or anything like that. At one point I was thinking, I did do the SATs and I did have in mind to go away, but that never worked out for a reason, you know. But I was just like, I'm just only applying to you because that's where I'm going. And now if you guys live in Jamaica or you guys know anything about UWI or anything about Carmack, the media communication school, it's very hard to get into. It only allows for a few students from across the island to actually get in there, and I do believe that persons from other Caribbean islands too do apply to come into the program in Jamaica. Also, you do have to do an entrance exam to get in. It just so happened that the year that I was to apply for, they actually cancelled that whole thing about having to do an entrance exam, so I actually didn't have to do an entrance exam. Anyway, people, long story short, you know, you're in 13th grade, people getting their acceptance letters from their universities and stuff, and even people who would have applied for the same thing that I would have applied for at Carmack, right, they were getting their acceptance letters and stuff like that, and I never get mine. I felt like I was legit one of the last persons to get an acceptance letter. You know, I was a little bit worried, but not really, because I just felt like that's where I was supposed to be, you know, doing journalism at Carmack and stuff. And so I eventually got my acceptance letter. I just want to give you guys a little bit of background too, in terms of like, you know, my upbringing and, you know, my family and stuff like that, without getting into too much detail. So my parents, they work full-time for Jesus the Christ, the Son of God, the Holy Spirit, God the Father. Just to give a short explanation, they basically work for the Lord, right? And that means they don't necessarily get a stable income all the time, you know what I mean? They do have persons who, we do have persons who, you know, would support our family in different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be like monetary or whatever, you know, people, you know, come give you groceries. Like, it just depends. Like, but my parents do not get like a salary. They probably get like what's known as a stipend, you know, just a little something to help with basic stuff, but nothing that would honestly be able to really take care and pay for every single thing. And so because of that, a lot of how I grew up was very faith-based. I'm someone who grew up in the church, you could say, and you know, the church has been a huge part of my life. God has been a huge part of my life from I was very, very young, and I knew that that was something that my parents instilled in me, in our family, you know. So based on all of that, like, faith, as I say, is a huge thing, huge thing. I have so many other testimonies of how God has just been good to our family, and I know that's just because of how my parents live their life, you know what I mean. They just try to live good with people. They just try to do what is right in the sight of the Lord. You know, I'm not saying that anybody's perfect and you get it right every time, but my parents definitely live their life. When you talk about surrender, like, you know, and allowing the Lord to guide your life, you know, making him be like at the head of your life for real, yeah. You know, the financial struggles were there, but one thing with, I guess, how my parents live their life, you know, they never walk and hold on them head and say, boy, I'm gonna have it, and you know what I mean. They always still represented God to the fullest, even when, you know, things weren't so 100 financially. And that's the way I choose to live my life too. If you guys probably follow me on Instagram or know me in real life, you know that for the most part I try to be a very positive person. One, because of faith, and two, because of hope, of the hope in Jesus Christ. That's what I believe in. You know, I believe that his plans for me and my life and my family and whoever else wants to be a part of God's family is to prosper you, to give you hope and a future. That's just what I believe, and therefore, you know, I always try to look at things in a very positive light, and I always try to encourage people along that positive, in that positive light also. It was already difficult, you know, going to high school and stuff like that. Everything just had to be, everything in terms of finances was always very tight. It was always very tight, but the Lord always came through for us. No different when I was going to university. Now, going to university is a huge jump in terms of what you'll be paying on a semester basis than high school. I think at the time when I was going to high school, the government did subsidize some of the fees. You still had to pay like an additional fee because what the government subsidized was not enough for the school to run. So you did have to pay a fee, but nothing in comparison to what you would be paying at university for 1 year, right? And the program that I was doing was for 3 years. I was just like, well, you know, I'm going to university. It just almost felt like things just kept happening, doors kept opening for me to go to university and pursue what I would have pursued at UE, right? So of course, you know, you go to university, and in order to do certain things, you're just starting as a first year, you know, in order for you to get in your ID and like access to the like library and stuff like that onto their online portal and whatever, you know, you have to pay a certain amount of your fee, you know. So of course that was difficult, you know, but we were able to find the money to pay for it up front. But then after you pay that little bit out of the humongous amount that you have to pay, you have the rest to pay. And if you don't pay by a certain time, they basically lock you off from like doing your mid-semester exams. They lock you off from the online portal. Certain things you're not able to do because you have not paid the full fee. School would have started the end of August, right? And I remember that up to October, my parents actually met in an accident, and the car was like completely written off. Thank God they were fine. That was a very difficult time, to be honest. Like, it was hard. I remember when I got the call, I remember where I was, and I was just like, so like, it was just so like, when they said the car was written off but they were fine, like, I was just like, how? You know, when you're meeting an accident, you know, you have whole lot of things you have to think about, fixing the car, this, that and the other, you know what I mean. You have a lot of expenses to think about that you would not have necessarily thought about. You don't know what kind of position the other person who would have hit into you. You know, you don't know when they'll be able to pay the money, if they'll be able to pay to fix the car, and all of that process would take a while, which would mean that you'd have to find some other way of getting around, and so on and so forth. So I remember calling one of my church sisters. I don't even remember how it happened, but I remember that same day she worked at a distribution company in Jamaica. You know, she was doing very well there, and I don't know how it randomly happened at the time. She was the youth director at my church, and I don't know if she just felt led to just say to me, you know, my job is happy, my job always looking for promoters is what they call them, right? So those people that you see in the supermarket walk around and ask you if you're interested in certain products, or they will tell you about some special promotion like buy one get one free, or give you vouchers for money off, stuff like that, or just to bring awareness to the product that they are selling or they're trying to push or for you to purchase, right? Those are promoters. I'm sure you probably all seen them in the supermarket, especially on weekends before. So she was just like, you know, I don't know if you're interested, you know, they're having a training, you know, I don't know if you'd be interested. And I was just like, yeah, I was like, for sure, because remember saying, no, me I think about money, you know, me I say, well, time I get close, you know, for the fees them pay and whatever not. It seemed to have come at the best time, honestly. And I should mention too that at the time when I would have been in my first year at university, my brother would have been also at university. So that was literally 2 children at university at the same time. You know, me tell you, say, 1 semester or 1 year of university was already expensive for 1 child. So can you imagine 2? And I distinctly remember, like, you know, my parents saying, alright, one of you is gonna have to go and get student loan. I distinctly remember that. And by the time, you know, we're trying to get all the forms, because there's a lot of documentation and who have to sign off, but they also do have deadlines. So they have deadlines for you to submit everything for them to verify, blah blah blah, so that they can give you the money so that you can pay the school in time, right? And I remember that happening and whatever, and we're like, oh, you know, it was really sad to take student loan, honestly. It's sad that we had to go that way, because if anybody knows about student loan, you know, sometimes it's very difficult to pay it off. There's no guarantee that maybe after you finish your course that you will necessarily be in a position to continue with the payment, and it coming like you have paid 3 times over. You know what I mean? With any kind of loan, you know, you're out there, the interest rate is very high. So no different with student loans. You know what I mean? It's something that can feel like it's something holding you back forever and ever, amen. If you have student loans, you probably understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, we tried to get through the process. We tried to do everything in time, and it just so happens by the time we're ready to get everything together, we missed the deadline by a day. So okay, we can't get student loan, we don't know how it will go. So when I did get that call, you know, it was just almost like, alright, cool, you know, this is a good opportunity. You know, I knew it would be something that would just be kind of like on a Saturday, on a Friday and on a Saturday. And the way how Carimac, the program that I was in, was set up was that most times you had your Fridays free. And I didn't mind that, because I mean, who doesn't want a long weekend? So the other courses outside of my faculty that I was doing, I just ensured that all the tutorials and the lectures were not on a Friday. So I basically had my Fridays free. So it kind of worked out in that regard. So I remember I went to the training. I was really nervous because I don't know what it's going to be like. You know, it's a new situation. You know, are the people going to lie me? Am I really going to get this job? Because I wasn't really sure. I just knew there was a training, but I didn't know if they were going to be like, okay, if you pass the training, then you get to work. But when I went there, I realized that, you know, I was basically in. I remember going out on the first time. I was working with like some over-the-counter pharmaceuticals and stuff, and I remember those first few times that I went out to work, the brand manager for those products, she was so impressed. She was so impressed with me, you know what I mean? Because you don't know already, say me are the type of girl where if me gonna do something, me gonna do it well. You know, I'm gonna be very professional and I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability, no matter what kind of job it is. I'm just gonna put my best foot forward always, just because I'm a child of God, and wherever I go and whatever I'm doing, I'm representing God. And so therefore I'm gonna do it as unto the Lord. You know what I mean? So, you know, they were really impressed with me. The brand manager was really impressed with me. And so it moved from me just doing things like on a Saturday, like a one event or one supermarket on a Saturday, or on a Friday and a Saturday, to, you know, me eventually moving to working Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. Sometimes, honestly, I would have to do like an event in the day, right? And then I would go and do my promotion at the supermarket afterwards, or I would do the promotion in the morning and then I'd go to an event in the evening, and you know, that was more money. So each event that you did, you know, that was more money. And so I was really, really grateful for that. I was honestly really grateful for that. And during that time, because I would have worked at that place like for my entire university life. So remember, I would have started in the September, and by the October I would have been in that job, and I worked right up until I graduated. Honestly, a lot of people don't know every single thing that would have happened during that time. Some of the things that I used to do just to save money, because I mean, honestly, it was probably I think I was getting about $2,000 something for each day that I would work. So if I work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's $2,000. I think it was 2,000 something. Like, I said 2,800 or something like that, but I know it was less than 3,000. So you guys can do the maths as to how much that was, and trust me, I did everything to save. Also, they like to put you, like, if there's a certain kind of clientele at a certain store, they put the people who are more seasoned or more experienced or are able to more articulate themselves than other people, you know what I mean? So I was so fortunate throughout those almost 3 years that I was working there that, you know, a lot of the times I got placed in stores or at events that were very close to where I live. And so sometimes I just walk, to be honest. I would honestly just walk, so I wouldn't have to pay any bus fare. I would literally walk. And I don't really want to give out all the information, but I used to walk to my jobs a lot of times, and I ended up during that time loving walking. Like, I just used to love walking. And I mean, I used to come off in the night and I would come home to and stuff like that, and God definitely protected me during that time, you know what I mean? So whereas sometimes I would have to take 2 forms of transportation to get to one store, sometimes I'd take one and then walk the rest of the way. Like, it all depended, but I used to do those kind of things. So don't know, say me I walk foot and I take bus and then something there already. And I did that. Also, something else that I used to do during that time was I used to carry lunch. So I used to, like, make a little sandwich from home, put it in a Ziploc bag and carry it in my handbag, and I'd carry a bottle of water with me and from home, and that was my lunch, so I didn't have to spend any money. So trust me, during that time I had to be super frugal. And honestly, my thing during the whole university experience is another thing too that I had to do, and I was fine with it, to be honest, is that whenever class was over, I would just come home. I would literally just come home, and I lived close enough to school, so I used to walk home, you know. And that in itself too was a blessing. So I didn't have money, I didn't need money to be spending to take transportation to school every day. So as soon as school was over, I used to come home and make sure I get my assignments done during that time, because guess what, I'm working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know what I mean? I'm working from morning until night. So a lot of the times, like, I just did not have the time. If I was working on a Sunday, more often than not, I would be on the praise team at my church. I would have to go to the 2 services at 7. One was at 7 and one was at 10:30. I'd have to sing praise and worship for both services, and I'd literally carry my clothes to go to work with me to church, and I would change off at church and walk or take the bus or something, you know, to go to my next job. Like, that was what my life was. And so I didn't spend a lot of time, you know, at school, just kind of, you know, I guess people would say the college experience or the university experience or whatever. Like, I just didn't have time for that. I also ensured that I know that I was working Thursdays. I also tried to ensure that, you know, my Thursdays were free, so that if anything, I could work and make the most of it, so I could have a 4-day work weekend and stuff like that, so I could make more money and stuff like that. And God was just good. And a lot of times, you know, even though, you know, you're saving because you're making a little extra, like 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe you make $8,000 or whatever, you know, for example, for the 4 days that you work, that's still a little bit of money. But I just try to think about it this way. So I was like, well, if I'm making $8,000, I'm just gonna try not to spend no money on it, carry sandwich from home, don't take the bus, just walk to where I have to, if I could do that, so that I could save money. I literally tried not to touch, you know, the pay that I was taking. And I remember this funny story too. I remember who I originally started working with was the over-the-counter manager. I started working on those products first, and I remember another brand manager from another division, I worked for her once, and when I worked for her, so like for instance, the over-the-counter thing maybe would have been just on a Friday and a Saturday. There may have been an event on a Sunday or a Thursday where I'd work for another brand manager. I remember I came into that office one day and I was doing some work in office too, because that was also another way that you could make money, you know, if they needed you to assist in any way in the physical they call office, you know, they would call it in, and that would be another set of money too. And I remember I was there one day and I was doing some work for them, and the other one walked in and said, "What are you doing with my promote?" And it was this big thing. I don't know why I don't like it. It was this big argument over me. So me just sit down there and I look. And me I say, well, okay then. It was kind of awkward, but I think it just went to show off the good work that I was doing. And so therefore, when they found somebody good, you know, they wanted me to just continue working on their product and stuff like that. And that was, I mean, that was funny, but it was just interesting at the same time that, you know, the two of them were like fighting over me. No, I want her on my, you know, promotion. No, I want her on my promotion. You're stealing her from me. And it was funny. It was funny. But I think the managers themselves were like actually very serious. But it was kind of funny too. I received so much favor while working there. Like the people who I worked with, you know, as I said, I always try to be very professional and stuff like that, which is why I believe that I was able sometimes to work a 4-day work week. So going to school full time, working 4 days out the week, still having assignments, still having rehearsals for praise and worship or what have you on Mondays, or if we enter in a competition at church. Like my life was very busy, but especially during that time. And I think during that time too, I would have been a part of a separate singing group, separate and apart from what I was doing at my church. So that was another thing too. Of course, during that time, you know, I was very tired. And even though I would work sometimes, as I said, a 4-day work week, it still wouldn't have been enough. Because I mean, the money never enough, you know, but I was so grateful for it. And you know me, I pinch it, just pinch little, only if I needed to. You know, I'm somebody who is a big saver. From like my little, I always like to have money. I like to save and then someday. So, you know, I would do everything I would need to save, but sometimes it still was difficult. God showed up with people, you know, in my parents' life, and I know to this day they can attest to that. You know, I'm no longer living with them, I'm living on my own now, married and thing. But people, God placed, you know, things in people. Like people just come to you and come and be like, you know, I know your kids are in school, or I know your kids are in university, you know, here's something towards the university fee. Or they'll just be like, do you have a need? Like they would just come and ask, do you have a need, you know, what's going on and whatever. And that's how we would literally be able to pay our school fee. God literally just spoke to people, and people just acted and were obedient, you know, to what God was saying. And that time, honestly, it did increase my faith a lot, you know. As I said, I already grew up in a home that was very faith-based anyway. You know, we just had to, we had no choice, you know, and we would have seen how God would have come through time and time again. And university was no different. Usually, especially when it came on to like exam time, whether mid-semesters or end of year, end of semester exams, like we were literally paying like the day before. We literally got the last cent the day before. I don't know if anybody can attest to that, like, you know, being so nervous because you don't know if you'll be able to do your exam. You know, the bursary at the UE office, they did offer payment plans, but it's like you offer me a payment plan, but it was still difficult for me. So say for instance, they give you a chance to pay in 3 installments, because a semester is a little over 3 months, I would say. And so they give you an amount to pay every 3 months. That amount that they give you to pay, it still was a lot. It still was a lot of money, because if them tell me, say, alright, we'll give you 50,000 to pay each month, that's still a lot of money for me to pay. But trust and believe, people, we never take a student loan for none of the 3 years that I was at university. I have no debt, no debt because of school. I don't have to pay back anybody, you know, because of God's faithfulness. Yes, I would have had the job. Yes, my parents would have given me what they could at the time, but trust me, otherwise from that, I can't even tell you how God make a way. Because as I said, the money we need to make from the work, the money my parents would have helped put on the fee, it still never add up to the full fee. You understand what I say? But every year that I was at university, all my fees were paid. I was able to do every single exam, and I think that is what kind of motivated me even more to ensure that I passed every course. I never failed, not even one course at university, because I knew that if I would have failed, that's more money that, you know, our family would have to find in order for me to sit that exam. So I was like, no bro, I am not failing at all. So God was extremely good to me, and I'm so thankful to be able to have a fresh start, leaving university having a clean slate, don't have any debts. I know a lot of people can't say that, but I am so thankful that that student loan never work out, to be honest, because I know that would be over my back right now. I know that looking back at it now, that it was for a reason that we missed the deadline by a day. We were so adamant that we had to get it because we wouldn't have been able to make ends meet for both of us to go to university at the same time. But God knew what he was doing, and I'm glad that God provided me with that job. I'm glad for the family that God placed me in. I'm glad too that in spite of having to do all of that with that busy schedule, I still sang on praise team. I still went to different rehearsals. I still was very active in church, in the youth department and different stuff like that. I still was doing that. I look back now and think to myself, how did you even manage to be going to school, working, going to rehearsals, singing at church, doing different things on Friday at youth fellowship? I look back and I'm like, how was I able to do it? But I'm so glad that even during those times when it was very challenging and tiring, I still was like, God, I'm still gonna serve you in that way. So I'm truly grateful for being able to make it through university, being able to graduate. I had a good enough GPA when I graduated too, and I'm just so thankful, and I'm just so thankful for God's continued favor over my life. And if you are out there and you're in a situation where you feel like ends not meet, it not possible, God will make a way for you. Sometimes I sit down and I think about all the times when I've been talking to God and I've been saying, God, I don't know how I'm going to get out of the situation here. I don't know how I'm going to make it through, but he always provides. So I want to just encourage you, if you are in a situation similar to mine or not, continue to trust God. So I want to thank you guys for watching another episode of Just Debbie Marie. I want to remind you guys to subscribe if you haven't. Remember to give this video a big like. Check out the previous videos on my channel and also my other channel called Yadmet. Remember to leave the praise hands in the comments to let me know that you've been rocking with me for the entire video. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video.